Scoochie everybody, it's AJ here again, and today I want to talk about Python lists, or lists in Python. Now, lists are a way in Python to store multiple variables or objects at the same time. Remember that everything is an object, and an object is used to represent something in the world of computing. It could represent a number or a string, a sequence of letters, or maybe something like a real-world object, such as a dishwasher or a TV or something else. But a list can store multiple things and multiple of anything. So a list can also store a number, a string, and a TV, possibly. So, for instance, let's start with the basics. So I could declare a variable like this that's called 1, that's called a, and assign it to 2. But what if I needed a list, or I needed multiple variables and I needed them assigned from 1 through 3 or something? I don't want to create B and assign it to 1 and then C and assign it to 3. I want to maybe have a list of all these variables in case I need to expand it. So one thing I can do is I can make something called a list, and what I can do is I can assign it to, I can send it equal to, and instead of just giving it a variable, I'm going to give it this bracket notation and going to assign it to 1, 2, and 3. And right down here, I'm going to print the list. And what's going to happen here is that I'm going to run my program, and I'll explain more in just a second, but as you see, I printed out 1, 2, and 3 in a little bracket notation. Now, what's happening here is that in this list, which in some other programming languages is called an array, if you don't know what that is, don't worry more, is a way of putting multiple objects in one place, putting multiple things in one bag. And so what I'm doing here is that I'm allowing, a lot of things to be in one place so I can simply access them from one variable. So what's happening here is I have to use this thing called bracket notation. As you can see, I have list, and then I have a bracket, a closing bracket to the left, and then a ending bracket to the right, and between that I have all of my numbers separated by commas. So I'm saying 1 is the first number in my list, 2 is the second number in my list, and 3 is the third number in my list. I can also keep adding commas, and I can add different types of variables. So I can add a string, or I could add a float, which is pretty cool. And my list, again, will print out. I can, again, still print out the list. And when I print out just the list, it will print out everything. So it says 1, 2, 3, var 2.34. So that's pretty nice. But what if I just wanted one element in a list? Well, the way you can do this is you can use, again, the array notation, which is the brackets or the list notation, and you can get one element from the list. And the way lists work is like many things in programming, is they start from 0 and they start at 0 and then they go up by 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some spaces here, and I'm going to show you notation which they refer to. So the first element in this array actually refers to position 0. It refers to position 0, and then the number 2 refers to position 1, the number 3 position 2, var position 3, and 2.34 position 4. So in computing, most counting, actually almost all counting, starts at 0, because the computer is in binary, and binary is just part of zeros and ones, so counting starts at 0. So if I wanted to assign A to a list element, assigned to the first list element, that 1, I would say it's equal to the list element at 0. So now if I printed out list instead of A and brought this up here, I would get, I would get 1. And if I wanted to print out the fourth element in the list, I would do list 3. So make sure before I press play, take a second and make sure you know what I'm about to print out here by assigning it to the index of 3. It's var because that is the third index. It's also known as the index, but the index is started 0, so really the third index is the fourth thing or object inside my array, which is the string var, which is pretty cool. And so I can easily, get all the elements from the array. I can also easily loop through my array if I wanted to. As we did loops in the last video, I'll show you guys how to loop through something in list. So I can do for a in list, and then I need my colon, and then so I'm going to do a loop, and now so what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop through my list, and what's going to happen for me is Python is going to automatically loop through my list for me and print everything out and assign it to A. So during this loop I have access to A. So what will happen now is everything will be printed out on one line because each element is getting assigned to A for a specific print statement, and it's going on its own line. So as you can see, I was easily able there to loop through my list and be able to do things to it. Now I showed you guys how to initialize a list, but I didn't show you guys how to add anything to a list. One way you can add something to the list is you can use the list.append method. And what append does is it adds something to the end of the list. So let's say we wanted to add 1,000 to the end of the list. This will add something to the end of the list. So then there will be something at the 5th index. So there will be 6 elements in the array. So as you can see, I ran my loop again, and since I added 1,000 to the end, 1,000 is now at the end when I do my for loop. And I can also use list.insert, which is going to insert in the middle of the array. Sorry guys, I used the method index, which is another helpful method, but I want to use insert. And so index, the first parameter it takes, or the first option it takes, is where do I want to insert it. So if I want to insert it at the second index, and then the second parameter it takes is what do I want to insert. So I'm going to insert 9. And so what it is, it's going to insert everything at the second index. And by inserting everything at the second index, it's going to move everything that's before it or after it above. So what it is going to do is it's going to move this 3 up and put this 9 here and put the 9 here, and kind of, I'm not going to put it there permanently, but it's going to put that 9 there and shift everything up so that that 9 can be inserted at the correct index. And so now if I run this program, you can see now 9 is the third element at the second index inside the list. Make sure you guys understand that indexes start at 0 and that the order is still the same as you would say it. It's the third element, it's the fourth element. So I can use insert and I can use append. Append and insert are pretty good. And then I can also use list dot. I can also, delete elements by simply doing this. I can give it a special keyword, which is delete, which is DEL, which stands for delete, and then I can give it what I want to delete, which is a list, which is what I want to do. So if I wanted to delete, let's delete the first element. So what I'm going to delete here is the first index, which is the 2 right here. You see what I'm saying? And so what that should do is it should delete the 2 and then move everything down so it's all good. So this is my array right now, and now when I run delete, as you can see, the 2 isn't there anymore, and the 9 got shifted down because I added it there. And so now I delete it, and so I deleted the variable at 1, which is pretty cool. You can also use list.pop, and list.pop will always take the first element of the stack off. And that is pretty cool. List.pop will always take the last element of the not stack or list. We haven't learned about stacks yet, but it will take the last element of the list off. And this is just if you want to create something like, let's say you're making a list where you stack a plate of dishes. You can't just take any middle plates off. You have to take, the top plates off one at a time, or they'll crash. So let me show you guys before I call this. My list looks like this. So it has that 1,000 at the end that I added. And then when I call this list.pop and I run the program and I run it, that 1,000 now goes away because I popped it off, and that will only delete the last element. And it also, list.pop returns the deleted element to me, so I can, print list.pop. And it'll do something. It will print out 1,000. It printed out 1,000 in the beginning because I printed out my list after I printed out that list.pop. So those are some pretty fundamental list functions. Remember, you can have anything in a list, and that it's you can change it at any time if you want to as well. If I wanted to just do list 0, if I wanted to change the first element to high and then print this out, I could modify the list element. Forgot a closing brace right there, or closing quote. And so I changed the 0th element there to high, which is kind of cool. And I was able to do that just by saying this, assigning the notation, which element I wanted to affect, and I was able to change that 1 to a high, which is pretty cool. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It'd be nice if you commented. Socialization is always Gucci for the community, and I hope you guys have a great day.